Well, here is our latest project. What we have here is a big ass air compressor. One that I probably won't use myself, but I'm going to clean it up and probably put it on Craigslist and see if anybody else wants it. Pick this up today, and the key word here is for free. So anytime you can get something for free, it's usually a pretty good deal most of the time. Sometimes, you know, some might say that I don't need this. Probably true. The first thing I'm going to do is do a little cleanup on it. It has a 5-horse single phase motor, 220 volt motor. A friend of mine had this in their production facility, and they needed some extra space, so they converted to a vertical model. Had this one, which they just pulled out of service just this past week, I think it was. So he says it runs. Tested, of course. Cleaned up a little bit. Anyway, there's a plate down here. I'm going to guess that's probably about an 80-gallon tank or thereabouts, something on that order. But the compressor says it's a Curtis. Don't know much about that, so we'll do a little research on that. But let me kind of give you some of the details around this. We'll do a little walk around before we get it all cleaned up. First of all, here's the tag on the motor. A WEG motor made in Brazil. As you can see in this top left box here, it's a single phase. Right here it says 5 horsepower. It's 208 to 230 volts, draws 23 amps, and it turns at 1750 RPMs. So that's kind of the motor. Down here is a tag on the tank. Not sure how well you can see that, but it says John Wood Company, Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, and it's got a manufacture date of 1959 on it, 200 PSI. I can't really see where it says the size of the tank. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna get this thing cleaned up so we can kind of see what we have and see if I can find a plug to plug this into my 50 amp 220, make sure it runs, and then we'll figure out where we go from there. I've mixed up some industrial purple degreaser, about 2 to 1 in here, in this little sprayer here. So I'm gonna spray this on there, let it soak in good. And I think I'm going to take it to one of the outdoor car washes, hit it another lick and get all this stuff off here, and hopefully that'll clean her up pretty good for us. Stuff you can see right all the ready. This stuff works great. I'll take some plastic bags with me to put over the motor and any of the electric. Here's they got a gauge here. This is the starter switch. You can already see where that degreaser has already started working on that stuff, and I think this dang thing is going to clean up real good. Well, we're back from the car wash, and the degreaser, this thing cleaned up really, really well. You can tell that this thing was taken pretty good care of. Got this all cleaned off over here. The only place I couldn't get was right on the top there. I might have to work on that a little bit more to clean it up a little bit. Overall, pretty pleased with how this turned out. I think the next step is I think I've got a plug that I can put on this thing to see if it runs like it should. We'll plug it in, so stay tuned for that. Now that I've got this thing cleaned up, I can see some of these stampings a little better. I'm not sure what manufacturer it is. The only thing I can go by is that right there. So we'll check that. There's also another casting on stamp right there. I'm not sure if you can see that. CU 1502. And down here's another one. And you can see we've got pretty new belts on there. Gates high power belts. That's fairly recent. So we're going to go in and do a little checking on the computer and see if we can find out a little bit more information about the compressor. I think I've got the motor pretty well figured out. Well, we're back at it here. Weather's a little nasty outside, so we moved things into the garage here. I did a little more research on this compressor and found out some information on it. Talked to a guy at FS Curtis in St. Louis, which now is the successor company, I guess, to the company that made Curtis compressors originally. And he told me that there should have been a tag right there, and there's not, as you can see, and I can feel where the tag's gone. And he said that tag would have had the serial number and everything on it. But he was able to utilize these casting numbers and told me the information on. He said it's a D96 compressor, Curtis compressor, and it is rated at 16.8 cubic feet a minute at 175 psi and turns at 850 RPMs. So that was kind of interesting. He also said if you need parts for it, you can get them pretty easily. So that's good to know. I need to connect some power. First thing you got to do, I thought I had a pigtail, and by golly, I was able to find it. Usually I put shit like this away and never have an idea where I put it. This is a pigtail with a plug that'll fit my 40 amp 220 outlet. So we're just going to connect it up temporarily and plug it in when we're ready. To do these, I didn't want to use wire nuts or anything like that. So I'm going to make some little lugs to connect these things, and I'll show you what I got in mind. So what I did is I got a couple connecting nuts here. These are 1/4 inch, and that 8 gauge wire will fit right in there just nice. And I'm going to drill a hole right there and a hole there and put a little set screw in there. And when I put these, and then I'll put these together, tape them up, and that should work for temporary. And then I can take them apart and use them again. Now we'll just make sure they work. There we go. Now, okay, finish the other ones and we'll be ready to go. Power. All right, the power is on. So let's go ahead and flip this switch and see what happens. Stand back, giving it a smoke test. Well, there you go. That son of a gun is pretty darn quiet, actually. Let's see what happens here with the pressure. Not really sure where this is set to go off right now, so I'm guessing it's probably there. By golly, I was guessing pretty close, probably right at 135, and that looks like that's about where it is. Okay, it looks like we've got a little leak down here in that drain valve right there, so we're going to take a look at that. Okay, we fixed that little plug at the bottom. It just come loose. I think that's the drain plug for the water, and it just come loose from, I think, from moving it a little bit. So I tightened that up, went back up to 135. It looks like this is what this is set at. I don't hear any leaks, so that's good. It took about 4 minutes for that to go from 0 to 135 in that, what I think is probably an 80-gallon tank. So that's pretty darn good. Anyway, we're going to let this sit for a little bit and see how long it holds pressure. It's been about 25 minutes and that pressure gauge hasn't moved at all, so it's holding pressure great. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and bleed some pressure off and let it restart. Get it started right at about 90 pounds, it looks like. Okay, this thing has been holding right at 135 for about an hour now, and I can't hear any leaks, so I think she's pretty well sealed up good. Anyway, I'm pretty pleased with this. So now we got to figure out what the hell we're going to do with it. Hope you found this helpful. If anybody out there if you know of anybody that's looking for a nice Curtis compressor, vintage style, but still works like a champ, have them comment and let me know, and we might be able to hook up a deal. Anyway, hope you found this useful. Kind of some interesting information about this particular air compressor, which I found kind of interesting. I didn't know much about them, still don't for the most part. But anyway, hope this was helpful for you guys out there. Stay tuned for the next video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there and send me your comments if you got them, and we'll get right back to you. Take care.